Yellow fever. The cold, harsh illness that offered no mercy and took the lives of thousands upon thousands of people. The American Plague, as it was commonly called, spread throughout major ports in the United States, taking the threat of a slow and painful death along with it. Wherever and whenever it hit hard, stopping in major American cities such as Boston, New Orleans, and Philadelphia. People of all ages, including small children, women, and the elderly, were all at risk of facing the callous fever. In the wake of all the clamor, there arose an astute and competent leader, one that would soon take on the illness and look it square in the eye with an exorbitant amount of determination that would soon lead to the medical breakthrough of the century. This man would once and for all determine the cause of the tens of thousands of agonizing deaths, the cause of the epidemics sweeping across the United States, the cause of yellow fever. This man was Walter Reed. It was an August day in 1793. The city of Philadelphia was buzzing with people, animals, and insects, all trying to stay cool in the blistering and sweltering heat brought on by the bright summer sun. Amongst the 51,000 Philadelphia residents was Benjamin Rush, a founding father of the United States and a leading physician in the area. Dr. Rush had taken notice of the upsurge of patients experiencing illness, finding a correlation between the weather and the condition of his patients. In November of the very same year, just 3 months later, 5,000 Philadelphians had died due to a fever that was quickly spreading around the area. In the summer of 1800, the fever would spread to the southern states, making its first appearance in Baltimore, killing 1,200 people. The biggest outbreak of the fever was the Mississippi Valley outbreak in 1878, 20 years before the start of the Spanish-American War. In just a period of 5 months, the ruthless disease resulted in over 100,000 cases and an astonishing death toll of 20,000. Yellow fever is characterized as a viral infection. Its cause later revealed in a series of tests done by Walter Reed and the Yellow Fever Commission. After incubating for a period extending from 3 to 6 days, symptoms such as fever and vomiting can be expected. Then, the bitter second round of symptoms strike. Depending on the victim, a second phase of symptoms may be experienced, which include hepatitis, shock, and jaundice, hence the name yellow fever. Multi-system organ failure is what ultimately brings the victim of the barbaric disease to their death. Before Walter Reed and his commission found the exact cause of yellow fever, not much was confirmed to be true about the disease, although many scientists and researchers theorized the possible cause of the disease. One of these famous scientists was John Crawford, a physician from Baltimore. Crawford was the first to notice the correlation between mosquitoes and yellow fever. It wouldn't be until 1900, 93 years later, before his revelation would surface as the answer. Fast forwarding to 1881, Carlos Finley, at the Academy of Sciences in Havana, presented a paper called The Mosquito Hypothetically Considered as a Transmitting Agent of Yellow Fever on August 14th. Finley touched upon the increase in the amount of mosquitoes present during the peak seasons of yellow fever. Finley also made note to point out that the red blood globules are discharged unbroken in people with yellow fever, a fact crucial to arguing his theory. The one thing that Carlos Finley was missing, however, was experimentation capable of persuading others. In 1897, a year before the Spanish-American War, Dr. Giuseppe Santarelli, an Italian bacteriologist, theorized the cause of the yellowjack fever was a microbe. He would soon find out that the culprit was actually an insect. Walter Reed was born September 14, 1851. The youngest of 5 children, Reed and his family moved to Charlottesville, where Reed briefly studied classics at the University of Virginia. He quickly realized he wanted to study medicine, and therefore transferred to the School of Medicine. In 1869, Reed completed his medical course, being only 17 at the time. After, he migrated to the Bellevue Medical College and completed a second medical course. Walter Reed then decided he wanted to go into military. and did so as a first lieutenant in February 1875. In 1886, Walter Reed and James Carroll, a U.S. Army physician, were to perform experimentation regarding Giuseppe Zanarelli's yellow fever theory. The theory was proven to be incorrect. This paved the way for the real perpetrator to emerge. Yellow fever was especially an issue during the Spanish-American War. An estimated 16,000 Spanish troops died from yellow fever between 1895 and 1898. American soldiers were also greatly affected by the disease. Over 2,000 of our soldiers caught yellow fever, which rendered them unable to fight. That's over 5 times the amount of American soldiers who lost their lives due to fighting. After the Spanish-American War, the Yellow Fever Commission team was built, consisting of James Carroll, Aristides Agramonte, Jesse Lazier, and Walter Reed. The team first met on June 25, 1900. The team's research and their experiments would be stationed in Quemados, Cuba, in which yellow fever was currently circulating. The team worked extensively to find the cause of yellowjack. Carlos Finley worked very closely with the team, and even supplied the commission with mosquitoes. Jesse Lazier allowed these infected and incubated mosquitoes to feed upon 9 volunteers. None of the American volunteers showed signs of the disease. It was then that James Carroll and William Dean volunteered to be infected. Soon after, it was evident that both men contracted yellow fever. It is important to note that the mosquitoes that infected James Carroll and William Dean had been incubated longer than the other mosquitoes. This was the difference between a successful and unsuccessful experiment. After the recovery of Carroll and Dean, Lazier unfortunately contracted yellow fever and later died. Walter Reed sought to continue the experiments anyway. The team proved that yellow fever was not contracted through materials touched by the infected. The commission also confirmed that yellow fever could be contracted through blood transfusions. When these series of experiments were completed, James Carroll traveled back to Cuba and began further experimentation on yellow fever. Through his research, he was successfully able to filter blood infected with yellowjack, which revealed an exact identity for the virus. At last, the cause of yellow fever had been proven. The news of the discovery quickly spread. Walter Reed's legacy still lives on today. He was responsible for successfully leading a commission to a breakthrough that created ripples across the Americas. His knowledge and curiosity played an important role in guiding him and the United States Army Commission to a plausible answer to the deadly yellow fever. Reed also possessed a great deal of leadership, which proved to be essential in gathering funds and leading the way in experiments. The team Reed commanded had produced such an enormous accomplishment that it still resounds within the history of medicine today. In addition, the work done by Walter Reed paved the way for other achievements. Because of Walter Reed and the team's discovery, more discoveries have resulted. The monumental achievement paved the way for scientists to discover the many more species of mosquitoes which are capable of transmitting the disease. In addition, James Carroll's work on yellow fever yielded the official isolation of yellowjack and helped scientists to develop a vaccine. Another colossal change that resulted from Walter Reed's research was the improvement of sanitation in military camps, which was also in part of William Crawford Gorgas' sanitary efforts during the war. In closing, the triumphant attempts by Walter Reed in the exploration of yellow fever yielded medical breakthroughs in the world of illnesses encountered on the battlefield and kick-started the progression and accumulation of research on other illnesses the soldiers faced.